Today I'm speaking with Kuntal Malia, and she makes looking good really, really easy. And I can vouch for it because today she literally got ready in 2 minutes. But not only that, she is a product and an analytics leader with a focus on scaling growth through AI in a startup environment. And we're going to learn all about that because I know I put a lot of buzzwords out there. She is unstoppable. She is the founder of StyleNook. So today we're going to meet STEMnist Kuntal. So Kuntal, a very warm welcome. We're excited to learn about you.
Hi, Priti. Thanks so much for having me on. Thank you so much for the kind words. I'm excited to share my journey.
Kuntal, tell us about what you do because you've been beautifully melding technology and fashion, and it's not something that we actually think that goes together.
We were just discussing this the other day, my co-founder and I, that typically whenever we tell anybody that we run StyleNook, a fashion styling, personal styling, personal shopping company, people always assume that either we're a stylist, like our background is a stylist or a designer, and then we have to say, nope, my background is in AI and data, and I still continue doing that at StyleNook. And actually that is what the company is built on. But to kind of, explain what we do, we help users find clothes that they will love and that fit them well. So what happens is a user comes to us online, tells us a little bit about herself. Based on that, there is a stylist with the help of some data tools that puts together outfits for the user to look at. Whatever the user likes, she buys. Whatever she doesn't like, she lets us know. And that feedback is used by our data tools as well as our stylists to understand what can be done better.
But it's really interesting that even in the fashion world, it is really becoming very technology driven.
Absolutely.
Like your company and many other companies and all these personal recommendations. Even if you go to Amazon, if you may like, you would like, yes, or you see this almost everywhere.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that and what does your typical day look like? So when you get up in the morning to when you end your day, what do you do?
The good news as a founder or the bad news, I don't know which one it is, but no day is the same. Every day there's something or the other that's happening. So there's some days where I'm working with our stylists to figure out what is it that they are kind of thinking about, how do they think about clothing, and then put that into our models so that we can do better. There's some days where I'm actually working with our merchandisers to understand how do they think about clothing, how do they think about the different aspects, what's in trend, what's not in trend, how do we go ahead and capture all of that in our models, right? Big thing that I'm constantly doing is trying to figure out these areas that are fuzzy or that typically come into fashion that you wouldn't think can be in a model. How do we actually create something that can go into a model and that can make us efficient and that can allow us to offer this service to every single woman? Because typically a service like this is only affordable if you pay tons of money or if you're buying something really expensive. But because we're using AI and data, we're able to make this affordable for anybody at any time.
I mean, of course, fashion is always fun, but what do you find the most fun about your job?
I think the nerd in me is still very much alive every day after so many years. So it's essentially being able to crack a problem. I think doing that gives me an immense amount of joy. I mean, it's of course the aspect of seeing clothes and all of that is fun. But I think a few days back I cracked how to write an SQL query, which had been driving me nuts, right? And there's an immense amount of pleasure in that. But I try.
So even as a founder, you're writing SQL queries.
I do. I occasionally do it. Just it just keeps you in touch with what your core is, and I enjoy it. And it's just easier sometimes for me to run and get exactly what I want versus asking somebody else to do it. But I think in general, the aspect of being able to solve a problem is at the core of my being, and that's what always keeps me going.
Oh, that's amazing because there's so much to learn, and the fact that you still code, I love it. Because a lot of people think a founder is just kind of directing everybody, but you're very hands-on. But I got to ask you this, is there something you don't like?
Paperwork. I have a lot of admin stuff to do as well on a regular basis. I just wish I could give that to somebody. Any compliance paperwork, I'm more than happy. But that is unfortunately one founder kind of a duty that you can't step away from because you are representing the company, right? But I'd be very happy if I could do less of that. for sure. I was just thinking that today in the morning, so that's a great question to ask.
And how much did you need to study? Because people get very concerned and they say, you know what, I need to be really good at maths, or I need to love coding, I need to do X or Y. How much did you study?
So I do have a master's, and I did study the programs. I mean, I did study like data in my program in my master's science. That being said, if you're going to get into hardcore modeling, yes, you need to be good at math. I think that is something that is there. But also from a very different perspective, I have built models which have beaten engineer's model, and I'm not an engineer, right? But I'm really good at math. I'm really good at thinking logically. I'm good at kind of figuring out what will work for the business and how data can be used for a business. And that's what I think does matter. So you don't necessarily have to study a lot, but you do have to invest in some courses and some programs. And then I think a lot of stuff, especially around analytics, and that's what I'm going to talk about. But analytics, data, AI is your ability to learn on the fly and keep learning. There's tons of information out there where you can just, look at a database. You get sample databases, you get tool access, and you can just keep playing. Even till date, I still like search up functions for Google, Excel to see like what it can do. I think it's never ending.
Tell me, because I love this, because you're not an engineer. So let's get into that, because a lot of people think you need to be an engineer.
Yeah. No, and I think it was something that kind of also bothered me a little bit when I was stepping into the field of analytics, and because for a certain time it had been only in school, while I was at school, and then I was in consulting. But I think the true test came in when I moved to Silicon Valley, which is just full of engineers and which is, operating in a very high-end tech kind of a scenario. So I kind of figured that that's where I would maybe struggle. But what I found was that, if you have a very strong aspect of critical thinking and logical reasoning, that beats everything. I actually found that a lot of times people, even if they had a technical background that was stronger than mine, they could not stand up to the deduction and the critical reasoning powers that I had. So that actually, I think, is the most fundamental skill for an analyst. That is the most fundamental skill for anyone building models. And in fact, there's a new term that has also come out for this recently in the last few years, known as a data strategist. Because that is the person that figures out how data can be used in a successful manner so that the company makes money and doesn't lose money.
That's amazing, because I love that, the ability to think, because that is actually becoming more and more critical than any degree that you have or any kind of education that you do.
Absolutely.
Now we have a lot of young girls that will be listening. Any tips that you want to share with them?
Honestly, sometimes when I see everything that is happening in the world in terms of, digital innovation and the various things that are coming out there, I am so envious. Like, I wish I was 8 or 9 years old at this point in time, because today to try and build something, to try and, just explore an idea is so easy. There's so much adoption of everybody being online. There are so many tools that you can use. You don't need to spend money. You don't need to invest in anything expensive. So honestly, if you like building, which I think a lot of STEMists at their heart do, just go out there and do it. There's really like nothing that can stop you from doing it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Kuntal. I loved listening to you. I'm so excited, and I so agree with you. I would love to be 8, 9 again.
Thanks so much for having me. This was fun.